All right, welcome back to another episode of the Aspiring VC. I'm your host, Matt Snow, here with Mass Ventures. And my guest today is Rahul Rana with Lux Capital. But before diving into anything too serious, I'd love to ask you, Dunkin' or Starbucks preferred coffee and why?
Yeah, of course. So my preferred coffee is actually Wawa because I'm from New Jersey, and then we have those everywhere, like every sort of mile or so. So I'm a big Wawa guy. But if I had to pick between those two, it'd be Dunkin'.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have a friend from Jersey at college that would always talk about the Wawa thing. But like, no,
Yeah.
guess it's a way of life.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, man, let's do like just a little summary, like talk about
Mhm.
yourself, the firm, and the role that you're in right now.
Yeah, of course. So me personally, I'm currently a sophomore at Rutgers doing finance and astrophysics, and I'm the author of Making Moonshots. It's a deep dive into the philosophies, mindsets, and strategies conducive to building moonshot companies, right? So really impactful deep tech companies. And actually, because of the book, because writing, I published this book about 3 months ago, and I was hired at Lux Capital because of it. So Lux is a 2.5 billion dollar deep tech sort of VC firm in New York and Menlo Park in California. And yeah, we do everything from space to the oceans to brain computer interfaces and everything in between. So yeah.
It's awesome, man. Not too often that you find someone who's in college that's already published a book and working basically the leading deep tech venture fund globally. So kudos to you for everything you've done so far. It is pretty amazing. Um,
Thank you.
I think let's dive a little bit more into, I think most of the listeners probably already familiar with Lux, but I don't know, maybe let's dive a little bit more into some of the stuff on the strategy,
Mhm.
a little bit about like the history of the firm, just kind of everything that's going on there.
Yeah, of course. So the firm's about 20 years old or so. Started in the early 2000s by Josh and Peter, sort of the managing directors at Lux. And basically, in terms of strategy, like at the core of it, it's just like they wanted to look where others don't, right? Hence the name Lux, right? Latin for light. And so they basically, their strategy revolves around just like finding, the most sci-fi sounding deep tech sort of technologies and, getting to like the scientists and really, just building companies and building, great sort of investments in sort of all these really sort of nascent industries, if that makes sense, where again where no one else is looking. And we love backing the really like visionary people, but who have sort of like tough sort of upbringings, or they're not necessarily normal, if that makes sense. They have they had something growing up, maybe had divorced parents, maybe they had they were bullied or whatever it may be. They just have that some chip on their shoulder that really just like motivates them to do these amazing things. And that's the one thing that we look for. And honestly, our firm and all the strategies and everything just revolves around sort of finding these these really really awesome and really crazy people doing these bold things. So yeah.
And on that line, how does the firm think about one, like having a little bit of lenience for the market timing and the scaling of these companies just because of the nature of deep tech, but also like filtering out, the segments of deep tech that they feel just aren't kind of ready for prime time yet.
Yeah, of course. So, and, in regards to market timing, obviously, like that's a whole debate in the deep tech space, right? Should be some. I even met someone who asked, like, should we even be investing in deep tech as like venture investors should they be doing so? And I mean, my short answer is like, despite being a deep tech VC, it's just like honestly, the returns aren't there. That said, like I'm saying relative to something in software, sort of your typical sort of Airbnb, DoorDash, Snowflake, whatever it may be, right? So obviously you're not going to see those kind of returns. But in terms of deep tech, like the all the investors that sort of do those things, they're really the people who want to get that market share, right? That grasp over these technologies that will be huge in the future, meaning so that they get that credibility, right? They get that sort of track record of investing into these technologies really early on, so that when it becomes mainstream in sort of 10, 15 years or so, maybe 5 to 15 years or so, they're going to be sort of on top. And so that's some like that's sort of like the core strategy that I've seen with most deep tech VCs. And also I just feel like most deep tech VCs, they also just want to see some good in the world. I mean, they're actually investing into some pretty impactful stuff. And deep tech itself is just inherently impactful, right? These companies are really progressing, science, technology, or humanity itself in terms of what they do, right? Drug discovery, right? Space manufacturing, everything literally on the frontiers, and they're pushing those frontiers. And so I think more than just like returns and market sizing and market timing or whatever it may be, deep tech VCs, they just do some good in the world, and that's why I personally do like it. But yeah.
Awesome, man. I mean, I think it's a perfect kind of segue to the next question, which is like on your origin story. So like How did you end up at Lux? How did you end up writing this book? How did you end up focused on, deep tech?
Yeah, yeah, of course. So growing up my entire life, and actually to this day, actually, so my dad, he works at Bell Labs, right? So for those in tech world probably know Bell Labs, but just again, incredible, like that was like the place to be for all things, inventions and science and research sort of in the past century. It's died down sort of, recently, but nonetheless, like that was the place to be sort of historically. And so I'd go to the labs as a kid, and I'd see all the Nobel Prizes on the walls, and those bronze plaques of all the scientists and all the breakthroughs, inventions, all the stuff. I was like, wow, like I want to do this like professionally, right? I want to be like an inventor. And sort of I always thought like, all right, like I wanted to go sort of the academia route. um that obviously changed. I sort of got to high school and sort of fell into like the finance business crowd. And so basically, when I got to college, like, all right, like my deepest passions and my curiosities was all science and deep tech and R&D and all that good stuff. But my strengths sort of lied in all things business related, right? Commercialization, right? Non-technical sort of stuff, finance and whatever maybe. And so I just felt like deep tech VC is just a perfect combination where I get literally the best of both worlds. And so honestly, once I came across the VC world sort of my freshman year of college, I absolutely just fell in love with that. And I'm a sophomore, right? So literally it was like last year when I say I was a freshman year. And so began sort of doing like deep dives and sort of teaching myself everything about VC itself, and then also sort of touching in sort of like some deep tech realms, bio and space and whatever it may be. And then I was like, all right, like I have all this energy, all this passion. Like I really want to do something bold to, get my name out there. And so I was not planning on writing a book by any means, but again, one thing that if I go, if I talk to you about my life story and everything, you'll see like my life was really just like supercharged, I would say, by mentorship. Like I had these very few but very impactful mentors in my life. And so back to freshman year, right? Around November, December-ish of what, 2019, I met this one guy, very serendipitous conversation. And he was just like, hey, like he's an investor, and on the side, like he likes to mentor people and writing books and everything, right? Just fun passion of his, because he himself has also written a few books. And so I was just like, hey, like I know I'm not an expert, I'm not a professional, like, I'm literally a college kid, but like take a chance on me. Like I really do want to prove to you, and I want to prove to everyone that I truly can write a good book about deep tech and sort of moonshots and everything. It's something I really loved. Thank God that he did take a chance on me, and the rest is history. So began writing the book January of 2020. Wrote it all of 2020 basically throughout the pandemic and everything, and was hired at Lux in September of 2020, and published in December 2020. So yeah.
So let's dive into it a little bit. Like, obviously we can't summarize the entire book, but let's talk about your motivation for writing it, like how you look at the world, why you think maybe kind of this mindset is like lacking. Like, let's dive into all that.
Yeah, of course. So I basically, how I structured the book, it was basically philosophies, mindsets, sort of the psychology behind people who go about making moonshots, right? How do they think? How do they think about the world? How do they take the world in? So that was all sort of like my first part, right? Sort of my intangible sort of stuff. Then I went to strategy and ecosystem, right? Sort of my more like tangible things. And so I got I talked about how to get started on a moonshot sort of company, considerations to make, all that good stuff, and then sort of how to get started on it. Then the ecosystem, right? Like how does startups and VC and academia and government, education and media and all these different players, how they all sort of intermingle, and sort of like the complexity of the deep tech realm and how we could really bolster it. And so, if I were to take that all in, right, what's sort of like, my call to action is just that, we need to make more moonshot companies, right? Like they're just these really bold, really impactful companies that again, like I mentioned before, they progress science, technology, and humanity itself, right? They do some good in the world. They also make returns. Their businesses are nonetheless, but they reduce human suffering to some extent, right? Again, whether it's drug discovery, literally making life-saving drugs, or whether it's agriculture and something in sort of agricultural space, and feeding people, right? Or space manufacturing. My favorite company, if I had to pick, is Varda, right? I'm sure you know Varda, right? Space manufacturing. That's the coolest thing ever. So again, all these companies, right? They reduce human suffering, they do some good in the world, and they also make returns. And that's the things that I really do want to sort of, support, incentivize. I want to make them. And so this was sort of like my manifesto, honestly, to get people started on it.
And when you think about kind of the deep tech ecosystem and promoting more moonshot thinking, like,
Mhm.
there's obviously some great stuff being done with NSF, DARPA, InQtel,
Yeah.
AppWorks, all these groups. But what have you thought about as some of the gaps? Like, where are there, both on kind of the funding and grant side, and then also
Mhm.
maybe like academia and like large corporates as well? Like, what do you think's
Mhm.
missing?
Yeah, I think it comes down to the culture of those three sort of parties, right? So grants, right? The government, sort of, NSF, all that stuff. I mean, we were literally speaking about this before we started recording, right? They're slow, and startups, if you're slow, you die. And so that, like, I feel like there's like a very massive culture difference in regards to that, right? And startups in academia, right? Startups in government, startups in corporate, right? The culture of all those different sort of things, they're just opposites, right? And so that's one thing that we would have to bridge, and that's sort of we would definitely have to fix that. But the way I think about the ecosystem, right? So obviously the primary participants, right? Startups, obviously, VC, right? Funding those, governments, obviously the regulatory landscape, academia, right? Research and all that good stuff. I also do consider education, right? University, literally, like, kindergarten to high school to, and colleges, like, in terms of education, not even like the research. I think that's very important, sort of, making moonshots. But I also, like to consider the secondary ones, right? Accelerators, the media, like the media is a powerful thing. Um, the original moonshot, right? Going to the moon and the Apollo missions. That was, yeah, sure. That had its political sort of implications, right? It had its scientific implications, right? Going to the moon and everything. But it was also like it was a call to action. It was sort of a way to mobilize the entire country to support this bold, ambitious vision of going to the moon. Just like that, you see a lot of companies this day and age, right? They use media to their advantage, right? Obviously, the go-to answer is Elon Musk, right? That guy creates media, right? Like he's doing he, like, everyone knows his name and stuff, but like he's just one example, right? There's so many other cool companies that are leveraging the media and crafting like this really good narrative in terms of supporting their bold vision. So the media is obviously a big one. Yeah, sort of accelerators, incubators. Um, actually, one thing I do like to say is, like, even like non-scientific, right, non sort of technological, non-business things of certain geographic areas, right? The culture, like the culture around Silicon Valley, right, or Boston or New York, and sort of like how people sort of the non sort of startup esque kind of things there, right? Food and entertainment. It actually plays a big role in sort of attracting really good talent, and I really do like to think about that as well, sort of creating like a solid sort of attractive ecosystem for the talent that makes companies, right, that makes deep tech sort of startups. And so there's so many things, right? It's all sort of interconnected, and it's so much fun to sort of think about. And yeah.
So yeah, two specific things that come to mind.
Mhm.
One is Eric Weinstein in the Portal. I don't know if you've come across his pod in the past, but I think he's
Yeah.
got some pretty interesting perspectives on kind of the dynamics between academia, business, and government, and kind of all these realms. And another is the recent
Mhm.
piece that Drake put out on the Anduril blog,
Mhm.
about having the DoD be kind of picking the real winners and not kind of having a everyone gets a trophy mindset. And
Yeah.
I don't know, these are just like recent ideas, but just kind of curious on those two things, like what those bring to mind for you.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, I'm all for competition, right? Competition, out of that just brings the best of people. And so I think we need more competition, obviously, in the startup space, and with grants, right, and with the DoD and everything. I just inherently, like, it will just increase the quality of the people and the projects and the products that we sort of rise to the top and everything. And so 100%, we definitely need that. I think we definitely need a lot more sort of private and public collaboration, in terms of common goals, right? I mean, for example, one thing people in the space community like to say is that, like, the simple act of, like, doing things for space, right, whether it's exploration or commercial or whatever it may be, it has tangible impacts on the ground, right? Whether it's the technology is used for better energy, things with energy, or climate change or whatever it may be, or better transportation or materials, all that good stuff, right? Everything we need to go to space, right? It's also impactful on the ground. And so we need this better sort of collaboration between the public, right? In terms of like crafting a better narrative, right? Something that shows the general public that, all right, like, doing these things are actually really impactful, and it actually benefits everyone, not just a few billionaires who want to throw toys in space or whatever it may be. And so you know I really do think that we need to sort of get everyone on the same page. We need to do things that benefit everyone, obviously, like that's obviously a given. but just like having better collaboration, sort of, better terms. Obviously, like we're in this sort of hyper politicized environment, which it's kind of tough to collaborate. But nonetheless, I think we get through that. And so if we could see that, I think so many good things will come of it.
Yeah, and the media point is interesting. I feel like it was very non-obvious to me when you first said that. It struck me as like, oh, I really didn't think of that. But yeah, now when I think about communicating the benefits of kind of the
Yeah.
grant research funding and getting
Hmm.
people to understand where this can bring the world forward, it does. Yeah, I can see how it's a lot more important than I would imagine at the beginning.
Yeah. Hmm.
Uh, I guess kind of switching gears a little bit, I do like to try and make sure the listeners get some kind of practical tips on, people trying to break into the venture industry, whether they're, still
Yeah.
in college or, young
Mhm.
professionals a few years into their career. Obviously, I think you have a very atypical journey, but, you know, and we were talking about Twitter earlier, so maybe that'll be one interesting angle. But, what do you think are some of the things that worked for your kind of networking and passion that have brought you to where you are right now?
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. So if I had to say, what would I recommend people to do? The first thing is just do the job of a VC to get into VC. What do I mean by that, right? Start sourcing companies, right? You know, conduct, pitch sort of competitions and, events and major things, right? Bring in founders and, putting in front of VCs, you know, send whatever companies that that maybe the founders of to the VCs, right? Establish connections like that. Do due diligence or create content, all that stuff. Like just do the job of a VC, and you'll be surprised like how easy it is to get into VC once you start doing that. And doing that with a good certain quality and actually adding value to your audience and whatever it may be. So that's the first thing I would say. Second thing I sort of alluded to that, but create content, right? It might be about a certain vertical that you're interested in, right? A certain type of product, whatever it may be. Just create content and become sort of this semi-expert or this like relative expert on that field. And you realize like that's actually very important and sort of very valuable in terms of making decisions about investing into that space. And so again, if a VC firm needs sort of expertise in that, like there you go, like you have all this sort of evidence, I guess, right? That you've been thinking about this, right? You think deeply about it. You actually am passionate enough to actually put out content and put the time and effort into it. And so I would say creating content is just the way to go. I know people who make TikToks and got into VC through literally through making TikToks, right? YouTube videos, blog posts, a book. I wouldn't recommend writing a whole book just to get into VC, but nonetheless, like that's what I did, right? And so just creating content is just the best way to sort of put yourself out there and show that you actually do have some sense of credibility and whatnot, and you do know what you're talking about. And likewise to that, similar to that, Twitter is the place to be, right? Not LinkedIn, right? Twitter, like using Twitter as a means of distribution for all the content you make, all the things you're thinking about, right? Connecting with people. Every VC lives on Twitter. And so it's the easiest way to sort of get connected with them, start conversations with them, get sort of build this online persona. So Twitter is the place to be. I would also say joining communities. That's huge. You can get so many, in sort of these, startup communities, entrepreneurship communities. You meet other VCs, you meet other founders. You sort of collaborate with people, right? You help them out. You could make your sort of your reputation known and sort of build like a brand there. And it's also just a means deal flow at the end of the day, right? Just like meeting people, right? But the best deal flow is not just like someone randomly Googling a company and finding it up. Like no, it's like you hear it through your network and sort of your friends and whoever maybe is sort of in the industry. And so it's a solid means of deal flow. But yeah, I would say the combination of those four things, if you do that right, do it consistently and sort of good quality, like that's what I did, and I got into, again, like you mentioned, like one of the greatest firms in the world. Right? I'm so fortunate to be there, and so again, as a college sophomore, like you would not expect someone to just like walk into a firm like Lux, but again, that's what I did. I did that for a few months, and here I am. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, man. And when you think about like building the mental models before you landed the role, like what do
Yeah.
you do for like thematic research? And like, did you ever like just do memos on a company that obviously you didn't have capital to invest in to like prepare the mindset of that, or like maybe do analysis when you sent a company to like flag it to someone and say, hey, you might want to check this out like for your own fund?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, I could say my book is like a year-long due diligence project of all things deep tech, right? Like I literally did like, like this like psychological sort of, not like actual research, but like a psychological like breakdown of like what makes a deep tech founder, right? A moonshot founder. What are the philosophies they use, right? How do they get started? What are the best practices? How do they sort of, get in contact and sort of, work with the ecosystem? I literally, it's a due diligence process at the end of the day, right? Of the sort of deep tech realm as a whole. So I honestly, I leveraged my book for many, sort of, connections and sort of, talking to founders and whatever may be sort of in the startup space. But I would say, yeah, like 100%. I could think of some companies that I just found early on, again, through my book research or just, through my networks or whatever it may be. And I sent it to, some contacts in the VC world that I have. And so I just, established a connection with them on the basis of like, here, like I'm actually adding value to you. I'm literally doing your job for you, right? Sourcing these companies for you. And again, if you do that, like obviously they're going to jump on a call with you, right? They're going to help you out a little bit, even just like making a slight warm intro or whatever it may be. And then that was like life-changing at the end of the day. And so yeah, I would definitely recommend, right? Write memos, like one thing that people could sort of students can do, right? Startups that sort of originate on their campuses, write memos for them, right? Like like have a little sort of compilation of that. I know people who like one of my friends at Stanford, he started a fund like literally as a sophomore in college, again, another sophomore, and he sort of controlled all the deal flow on Stanford. And this a major VC that literally everyone knows their name. Like a major VC reached out to him and was like, hey, like, can you scout for this major firm that, again, everyone knows of. It is one of the best in the world. And so that's all it takes, right? Just like, having sort of grasp over maybe a certain demographic or a certain geography or certain vertical, a certain industry, and sort of, writing memos, right? Sending them to people, creating content, all this stuff, it's all sort of interconnected. And the culmination of all that, like I'm so sure you'll break into VC. So yeah.
Totally. I do want to think about like, I think you have a unique view on the world. I think that the focus on deep tech makes you stand out because it's just a very underallocated part of the market. I think 0.5% of venture dollars as of last year went into deep tech, which is crazy, right? When you think about the impact of these technologies to like literally change the type of civilization we have. Like, how do you think about like the impact that you want to have in the world, like what you want founders to be doing, what you want like your direct life impact to be doing?
Yeah, of course. So I mean, I can't tell founders what they should be doing. I'm in no position to say that. But again, if I were to say anything, right, let's go make some moonshots. But obviously, I would encourage people to work on some really impactful sort of things and something that actually does some good in the world. And also, doing something where their skills are sort of, used to the fullest potential and all the good stuff. And so what impact do I want to create personally? It's honestly, again, like I keep saying it, right? It's the title of my book, right? Making moonshots. Like I want to be in a position where I could, incubate, support, build, invest in as many moonshot companies as possible. So, I mean, how am I going to do that? Honestly, what I'm doing right now, I'm literally fulfilling sort of like my life goal, right? Getting started at Lux and everything. And what I like about Lux and a few other deep tech funds that, and they invest, but they also incubate in-house. And I find that perfect, right? That is the perfect position to be in. So, there's a few firms that do that. Honestly, I want to buy Bell Labs maybe in the future and convert that to Moonshot Factory. Like, I don't know, like I want to do something bold. I really just want to be in a position where I can, influence startups, VC, academia, government, sort of help everyone work together and sort of, again, whether that's, I don't know, media or whether that's just, working in a policy sort of position. Like, I don't know what it's going to be, but nonetheless, I just want to be in a position where that sort of has that sort of that impact. And if I could do that, hopefully I could make some moonshots. So, yeah.
Yeah, man. And like, I'm sure that both of us have gone through that, like Great Stagnation piece from Peter Thiel. But like when you think about like all the advancements that you're looking at, all the people that are pitching to Lux, like, what do you want most? Is it the sustainability? Is it space tech? Is it longevity? I don't know, it's probably, imagine, I guess, a combo of a lot of these things. But like what it feels like humanity is like holding itself back from like an amazing potential right now. And I'm curious as to what you think, like, what do you think is possible? What could we accomplish like as a species if we kind of get this stuff right?
I don't even know. So many things, right? Like so many things. I mean, like that's a loaded question. I mean, we could, we could make poverty just completely disappear, right? Like homelessness can disappear. We could be a multi-planetary species. I mean, we could do so many things. We could literally cure all diseases and virus. I mean, like literally one of my friends, he's working on a cure for all viruses and early tests, like it works. Is the craziest thing, right? It could actually, save millions, if not billions of lives. Like if we could be, incentivizing people and sort of, creating this sort of this conducive environment for working at these awesome companies and for these, these major sort of, solving these major problems. Like, I don't know, I can't even tell you, like, I don't know, we can enter this golden age, I guess that is what I'm trying to say, right? A little like, literal renaissance of science, tech, and humanity. And Honestly, yeah, a golden age. I think that perfectly sort of characterizes it. Like what I think could happen if everyone just works on together and sort of puts all these politics aside and all these sort of things that's just holding us back. And yeah, I think short answer, golden age, 100%.
I do feel like a lot of people have the sense from social media of kind of either the utopian tech view or the dystopian view, right? And that, like, we're just gonna collapse as a species and it's all gonna fall apart and everything's horrible, or they just kind of see like the tech utopia. I don't know. What do you think about? Because don't you feel that like there's all this like massive negative energy in all the social media, right?
100%. Yeah, yeah. There's so much. I mean, the way I would sort of describe myself as being like a pessimistic optimist, if that makes sense, right? Or sort of like a rational optimist, or sort of like a dynamic optimist, like in that, like I'm not like like not even just like irrational. I'm not irrational, right? When I say I'm optimistic about these deep tech things or these technologies, whatever it may be, like I still am like 100%. I believe in them, but it's like to an extent, and so like having that balance, I feel like I wish people were just more balanced at the end of the day, right? Like not so irrational, right? Not so extreme. Feel like and I don't mean this in politics, right? But just like in general, I just feel like people would just benefit from being more, from more balanced, right? Not having, all these sort of, I want to say so many things, right? I just don't want to get like, not like destroys like, future sort of relations. Like I just like hate politicians, to be honest, like to be quite honest, right? Like I hate government and stuff. And so, there's so many things I could tie into like, the rate of scientific progress and technological progress to government and stuff, or I could relate it to academia, or I could relate it to, startups and sort of VC culture. I mean, like for example, VC, like no one like the diversity problem in VC, like that's a huge sort of thing for why like we're just like not progressing, and sort of and the diversity problem in tech in general as well, right? And in finance and just like honestly in every industry, I mean, like most industries to be honest, but nonetheless, like there's so many systemic things that if we could fix, like it would just be, again, to go back to what I said before, it's the golden age. And so hopefully we change all this stuff, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, interesting to think about just again what you talked about before. It's like these non-obvious elements of it, like who's thinking about
Yeah.
having enough media in deep tech and who's thinking
Mhm.
about like, I don't know, doing a little more shaking up within, high school education to make people more, biased towards supporting these fields. It's there
Mhm.
are these like unseen elements that maybe there's probably something huge that we're not even thinking about right now, right? There's
Yeah, yeah.
in deep tech and that we just aren't
Mhm.
even literally thinking about it. Um, so it's interesting to, I don't know, just brainstorm on these structural issues. And I think we see the market gap. We see how these technologies are underfunded, even though they have the greatest potential, and it's
Yeah.
frustrating. But I don't know, it's exciting to at least be having these conversations, and hopefully, with the way the media is kind of decentralizing, and if it kind of further decentralizes, maybe that will kind of take away some of this dystopian, you know, pessimistic, massive energy, and reorient people towards a little
Mhm.
more calm and moderated. I don't know, information diet, I guess, and mindset.
100%. I mean, like, I feel like if there's just like one thing that we could say or do or something that's going to be most impactful, it's just doing something where we could allow people to sort of maximize their human potential and sort of reach that. I'm not a big fan of telling people, oh, pursue deep tech, right? Pursue science and hard science, whatever it may be. Again, do what they can do. Everyone can do whatever they want. I just want people to sort of, work to their fullest potential. And so, whether that means, taking down whatever obstacles, right? Systemic or otherwise, or, just at least exposing them to the hard sciences, right? Or exposing them to humanities or whatever it may be, just like whatever is like they're most passionate about, anything to sort of maximize human potential. I think that's the most impactful thing we could do for deep tech as a whole, or for just, again, for life itself, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah, it is so interesting to have these conversations. Definitely, yeah.
totally. All right, well, switching gears again, if you're ready, we can move into
Mhm.
some rapid fire stuff.
Let's go. Yeah, let's do it.
First one is who's been one of your most important mentors? And caveat there is if you have like a quote or like a specific, I don't know, action they took and a piece of advice that like still kind of sticks with you today.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I actually did say that sort of, in my origin story, right? Like there's been very few mentors in my life, but they were so incredibly impactful. So, I would say I would say three of them, right? And I'll give you a quick summary of each of them. So, first biggest mentor, and I'm not going to mention my parents. Obviously, they are the most important, people in my life. So, parents and sort of family aside, I would say, so non sort of family mentors. I would say my piano teacher sort of growing up. So for context, I played piano internationally. A bunch of times in Carnegie Hall in New York City. I went to Canada, went to Germany, went to Belgium. And also invited a bunch of other places, right? Tokyo, India, London, Iceland, Spain, a bunch of places. And so piano was a big part of my life growing up. And my piano teacher, right? So I actually had a different piano teacher from first to fifth grade, and she was not good. She was not good at like sort of like at the rate of which I should be had been learning, right? You would expect people who was playing piano since first grade or to be absolute prodigies. Like no, like I was not good, and so I switched teachers around sixth grade when I was in sixth grade, and so again my new teacher, right? He's where I just exponentially just improved. But not only that, right? Like he helped me get over stage fright, right? He helped me get over sort of appreciate other cultures and stuff, and sort of using learning about art and sort of appreciating art and all that good stuff. And so I feel like he really sort of influenced me in terms of all the appreciation that I have for science, for technology, for art and whatever it may be, right? Just having that appreciation, right? Everyone has interest for it. I actually just deeply enjoy it. And so and sort of he really influenced my worldview on just just being, I guess, a world citizen, if that makes sense, right? Like having all these perspectives and valuing diversity and all that good stuff. Like he really sort of planted those seeds in me, taking me around the world and whatever it may be. And so it's definitely him. Also, think about piano, right? And it's worth mentioning this. I actually don't have perfect pitch. I don't even have semi-perfect pitch. And if you're not a musical person, it's basically just the ability to if you hear something, you could play it basically on a certain instrument. And so every sort of prodigy and sort of musical prodigy, they have perfect pitch or relatively perfect pitch. I had nothing. And so the only way I could get to, the position that I was in, right, playing internationally, right, all these competitions, playing alongside actual prodigies, it was pure perseverance. Like that is all I could ever do because I just didn't have that innate musical ability. And so another thing, that's what my teacher taught me. He recognized all right, this kid doesn't have perfect pitch, but we'll make sure he'll compete with these people. And so me personally, it was just super, super impactful. Him teaching me just sheer pure perseverance. Then I would say also, I mentioned before my mentor who brought me along on the book process, got me connected to a publishing company, sort of helped me pitch them and make a manuscript, whatever it may be. So he was, again, easily safe to say he changed my life, right? I wouldn't be here had it not been for writing that book and everything. And I would say also Josh Wolf at the end of the day, right? My boss at Lux. And in terms of quotes, one of Josh's quotes that he always says is avoid boring people. I really do like that quote. And it really just it sort of dictates how I would just act, right? It has a double meaning, right? Avoid boring people. Don't be boring to people, right? Be an interesting person. I try to be the best person you could be, invest in yourself, sort of, all that good stuff. But it's also just avoid boring people, right? Sort of that notion that you're the average of the 5 people you spend most time with. So you want to be with people who sort of push you, right, and sort of support you and all that good stuff. And so I really like the double meaning of avoid boring people. And so yeah, the 3 of them were definitely life changing.
That's amazing, man. The part about not having a perfect pitch and competing with some of these prodigies is this is pretty wild. But I think that probably speaks to your ability to kind of push through the book at such a young age and kind of all the all the other things we've talked about so far. Who's one of your favorite VCs outside of Lux? It could be a firm or it could be a specific partner that you really like.
Yeah. Dalian, 100%. I mean, Dalian, he's the coolest guy ever. To be honest, I think Dalian's the coolest sort of VC out there. But no, he's really cool because again, he incubated Varda, right? And he has this very really crazy sort of journey into working at Founders Fund and stuff. But again, in terms of to go back to what I said before, right? What do I want to do with my life, right? I want to be in a position where I could build moonshot companies and also invest in them. He's doing exactly that. And so I love, again, Varda specifically, and I know Founders Fund did also Anduril. And obviously, Lux did a bunch of incubations. And so he's just someone who's already doing what I want to do. And so it's just been awesome to, learn from him, speak to him a few times and stuff. And so I would say yeah, he's definitely my non-Lux favorite VC.
That's awesome. And, when you think about, I know we've talked about kind of your love for Varda, so that's obviously one of your kind of favorite.
Yeah.
But I don't know, what are some of the characteristics in general, but then deep tech specifically that really get you to start being excited about a startup?
Yeah, yeah, of course. And also I feel like I have to make this disclaimer. Varda is a Lux company. That's why I might be a little biased. It's a portfolio company, nonetheless. Um, so what sort of excites me in deep tech? Honestly, like it probably isn't what investors really look for, but just doing some good in the world. Like I don't want to be funding, a company that's making humans suffer or doing some bad stuff and sort of in the environment or whatever it may be. Like again, maybe I might be losing tons of returns or something like that, or I just think I just can't. I don't. I just it doesn't sit well with me, right? If I were to be funding something that doesn't like sort of fit my sort of my code of ethics or again my moral compass or whatever it may be. And so that's honestly what I look for first. Like, is this company doing some good in the world? And can I sleep well at night knowing that let's say that their technology or their product or whatever it may be is scaled to like 1 billion people. Like, will society just crumble because of it? Right? Will ever happen? Obviously, no product will reach that. I mean, it'd be cool if some product did. Very few in the world have, but nonetheless, like it's just like sort of a mental model. Like if like a million or 1 billion people use this, like what about the world will be different? Or will there be massive sort of irreversible changes, right? And so that's what I do like to think about first, right? Before getting excited about something, like do I see it have like mostly like positive impacts and stuff like that sort of in the future. So that's definitely one that sort of excites me. And also I'm a big sci-fi guy, right? So yeah, again, love art, right? Love all these companies that are doing sci-fi things. That's why I love working at Lux. And also yeah, I would say once you get like a little bit of the once you have that sort of, it's going to do some good in the world. Once it's working on some like cool sort of heroic sort of sci-fi stuff, like I think the combination of those, it gets me just super hyped. And hyped enough to write a whole book about it. So yeah.
One point I just want to throw in real quick that you talked about there was the importance of ethics and like venture and technology and deep tech specifically.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge. I think that is probably a massively lacking in a lot of fields. I've seen Countdown Capital, really have a strong focus on it, but I think that's maybe a little concerning. I think maybe we need a little bit more focus on the ethics because there's a ton of money to be made and all the wrong incentives for potentially rolling out awful technologies as fast as possible.
100%. Yeah.
More thoughts on how we can, it's like I remember it might have been Eric Weinstein who actually talked about this, where it was like, we're kind of just like pulling new technologies out of the box, but we don't really put them back in. Once they're out, they're out. And so is there, a certain technology that, maybe there's other species on other planets that have, perished because they pulled out a technology that once you pull it out and it can't go back in, it ends up being a civilization ender. So I don't know, maybe we need some more funding to think about these things.
100%. Yeah. I mean, like, honestly, again, one of the things I love about deep tech, but like there's so many industries that I just see that are like, wow, like it's so cool. But then I think about like, all right, like what if there's like just like one bad player, right? Some person who sort of, takes it the wrong way and does something bad with it. And it's just scary. Like, I don't know, like you think about longevity science, right? You could do some bad stuff there. Sort of, people call them designer babies or sort of harnessing people's sort of making whatever sort of a genome that they want or whatever human that they want or whatever it may be, like things like that. There's so many sort of ethical sort of implications for that, and going to space and everything. I mean, surveillance, right? Privacy and sort of AI, obviously, like that's classic. Obviously, like everyone knows, like you could do some bad things with AI, and especially on the national defense sort of scene. Again, at Lux, I'm sort of tapped into that space, and it's just like scary. Like some of the countries around the world, what they sort of harnessed and what we're lacking in, like it's scary to say the least. So definitely we need to be thinking about ethics and also like just I don't know, like it's scary. I'll just like end it at that. Like there's so many things I could say. Obviously I can't say them for certain reasons, but nonetheless, like it's worth definitely checking out all the technologies that we see, but with an ethical lens or sort of with just having like that wisdom for like what's the sort of the second, third order effects of these things. Like that's how I really sort of think about these things.
Totally. Okay, this is an easy one, but less pontificating about meaning and ethics and philosophy. What are some favorite podcasts, books, blogs, both in venture and deep tech?
Yeah, I mean, favorite book, I'm a little biased on that. If I were not to pick my book, I would say I'm looking at it right now, Letting Go by David Hawkins. it is not about venture or science fiction. It's literally like a psychology book, but I absolutely love it because it's honestly helped me process so many emotions and so many hard times and get through all these things. Like this, like literally this book, right? It's all about letting go of emotions, right? And sort of, surrendering in terms of that. And so that was one of the most impactful books because again, it got me through some hard times. I would say 12 Against the Gods. I'm looking at that right now. Like it's just, it's 12 stories about these really incredibly heroic people. It is a tough read, but nonetheless, it's really interesting in terms of, just like inspiring yourself, right? We've had some, again, heroic people throughout history and just, their stories and stuff. Another book, right? The Elegant Universe, right? All about, astrophysics and all that good stuff. And I love thinking about space and whatever. So, those are some good books I really do like. In terms of podcasts, yeah, your classics, right? I do like listening to podcasts that not a lot of people do. So sort of lesser known ones. Like Ben Reinhardt, like he has a really cool podcast. Like he's a big sort of guy in like deep tech space. He has a really cool podcast. There's some other ones like Quanta. I do like sort of things from the Santa Fe Institute. I do like those. Again, I just like listening to things that I know people aren't typically not listening to. Just if it feels like it gives me like an informational edge, basically. So I like doing that. And yeah, all right. So you said books, podcasts. What else did you say?
Like blogs.
Oh, blogs. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. There's a few of them. There's like what is it like things like Aeon is like a philosophy sort of thing. There's one called something of what was it, Works in Progress, I think, or something like that. Marginal Revolution, right? Tyler Cowen's definitely. There's a few of them. I really, again, same with podcasts, right? I like to read sort of more niche things. You just get more information, right? And sort of, it's more catered to people in that said industry, and so you get a lot more just industry sort of knowledge or whatever, maybe a lot of niche stuff. So definitely like doing that. So yeah.
And this one, super easy, but very fun to get the answer from everyone.
Yeah.
Tim Ferriss. What is the purchase of like $100 or a couple $100 that is outsized impact of like happiness for you?
Yeah. What would I say? Honestly, like Twitter was free, but if I would have paid so many $100, I'd pay much more than a few $100 for Twitter. What else? I don't know. Honestly, it's probably a cliche answer, but like just Twitter has been that much impactful. I would pay so much money for it, to be quite honest. And so I would say that is the single most life changing thing that probably ever happened to me. Using Twitter and using it for sort of VC stuff and startup stuff. So yeah.
And yeah, no, I have to agree, and I think it is kind of mind-boggling that the monetization has still been pushed out so far. But what promoting yourself, like where can everyone find you? Twitter, LinkedIn, and elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. So on Twitter, my ad is at rrana03 _ LinkedIn is just my name, obviously. My book is on Amazon, right? Barnes and Nobles, Kobo, like all the usual sort of book retailers and sort of stores and whatnot. It's not in stores yet. I'm gonna put it in stores once COVID sort of passes. I just felt like it would be kind of useless to put in stores. No one's going to bookstores, but nonetheless, all the sort of online retailers for books. And yeah.
Awesome. And then one last one that a recent guest encouraged me to add is giving you an opportunity to throw a question my way.
Yeah, of course. All right. So one question. I'll give you like a deep one. What's one sort of technology, right, that you think will happen within the next decade that will be like just this super hyper politicized sort of very controversial thing? I'm really curious to get your take on it.
Hyper politicized. Maybe nuclear. I potentially think it's going to be the most important one.
Yeah.
And I don't know how we're going to address this kind of civilizational issue of storing the spent rods. Like I think I'm hoping Commonwealth Fusions like has the answer.
That'd be cool.
But assuming that doesn't happen, we're going to be rolling out a lot more of these traditional plants, which I do think there's a little bit too much FUD. Like I think they're a lot safer than most people realize, and we probably need them a lot than we tend to think. But yeah, and you think of countries like all the controversy we already have with Iran and the nuclear deal and everything going on over there. And I just, imagine a lot of red flags with how we're going to handle all that.
Yeah. I mean, for that specifically, I mean, like if we shift to nuclear or anything, right? That was sort of we wouldn't need oil and all that for the most part. Obviously, we'll need it to a lesser extent, and if you don't have that sort of problem, like why would we ever need to go to war with like Russia and Iran? Right? Everything is just like rooted in oil. I feel like obviously it's a reductionist sort of thing. Obviously, there's other reasons, but nonetheless, I feel like it could solve climate change, or it could solve sort of geopolitical sort of issues like nuclear. I don't know, nuclear is, but again, like it's a tricky sort of thing to tackle. So yeah, we'll see.
Well, really appreciate the time again. This was an awesome conversation.
Absolutely.
And hopefully we'll catch up again soon.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, man.
Looking to innovate, invent, and disrupt? We're your partner to fuel your growth. Contact us to learn more.